Hi, welcome to the Spirit Podcast. This is the very first episode. I'm so glad that you're here and joining me today. I kind of wanted to just talk about my spiritual journey and how I got to where I am today. What led me to my spiritual journey in the mediumship world, how I even had the notion that this is something that I could do. So, hello, my name is Pearl, and I live right outside of Boulder, Colorado, where I have my own practice. I see clients and I do mediumship readings. I also read tarot and I teach courses online. So if you're curious about intuitive development, and if you're also curious about developing your mediumship skills, or even wondering if that's something that you can do, I have two courses that I run to support that interest and calling. So definitely head to my website and check that out if that speaks to you. But um, I think that so many people, if you're tuning in now and you're listening to a podcast that's about mediumship, I'm sure that you've had some experiences that brought you here. So maybe you sense spirit, maybe you have dreams, maybe, I meet a lot of people who do body work or hair and they're in people's energy and then they're picking up on these things from the person and realizing that they're gifted and that they have these gifts. And so many people out there have this ability. And if you're here today, that might be you as well. And I always like to encourage anybody who's curious about mediumship and what it is to go develop. I really, really think that the world needs everybody that can do this work to do it. So, if you're called, definitely develop, definitely try, see where your gifts are. And if not doing it professionally, you can at least support your community, your friends, and most importantly, yourself in this work. So, back to the beginning of my journey, I had a very distinct moment where I knew that a spirit was communicating with me. Somebody who was no longer living, who's on the other side in the heavenly realm. There's all sorts of words that we use to describe a soul that is alive and well, but in fact not here. So for me, I had just lost my mom. I was 30 years old and I had an 8 week old little baby girl. And I'm sitting at my computer, and my mom, who had recently passed, at this point, it had been 3 days, and she came up behind me, and I heard clear as day her call my name and say that she had something to tell me. So, obviously, this is a shock and very surprising. However, it was my mom, and I know what she sounds like, what she feels like. And so I listened, and she excitedly told me she had something to show me and that I needed to get up and go to the garage. And so it was almost kind of like it felt like I was in a movie for a moment or something, like this was happening to me. And I was just kind of like going with it. So I got up out of my chair. I went to our garage where I had stored all of her things, and she instructed me to look in her lockbox. So I was trying to get it open. I couldn't quite. I didn't know how to unlock it. And she was saying, put it up over your head and slam it on the cement ground. So I did that. And then it just gently popped open. And then inside were pictures of what I now know to be, or who I now know to be my biological father, and newspaper clippings from his passing. There was a checkbook where you can kind of see her writing down things between my father who raised me and my biological father, and kind of proof that, I was in fact conceived while she was spending time with both of these men. Um, so perhaps she didn't know, perhaps she knew, but in spirit, she came to me to tell me the truth about who my biological father is. So, of course, I'm looking at all of this and it's shocking. And on top of the fact that So the information is shocking. And it's shocking that my mom in spirit is coming to tell me these things. Like, I'm also aware of what's happening and thinking I might be cracking up. I'm postpartum at this point. Like, this is wild. And who am I going to tell who's going to believe this? So, quite an interesting energy to be in. But once I kind of gathered myself, I brought the information to my husband. And so it's like, not only, hey, my mom, who's passed away, has come to me and showed me this information. But I don't really think so. See this person here, he doesn't really look like me. Um, but he my husband thought otherwise. He thought it looked a lot like me, and he was pretty sure that this was my biological dad, with the information. And I mean, he was probably 100% in that moment. Of course, I have all the emotions tied to, you know, how could my father, who raised me, who I'm close with, who's very dear to me, how could he not be my father? This means that his family isn't my family. This means that my mother lied to me my whole life, or was she not lying? And I needed to get a DNA test to, in fact, prove that to me. So in the following days and weeks, my dad and I did a DNA test, and we got the results back that, in fact, he was not my biological father. And to say it rocked my world would be an understatement. Of course, anybody, experiencing this, would kind of have a a crashing down of everything they thought they knew. The ways in which I thought I looked like my dad and his family weren't true. Um, and also, a lot of people go through this. So, what's been interesting is, with the phenomenon of 23andMe and Ancestry, people are doing these DNA tests, and all these skeletons are coming out of the closet, and we're learning so much about the truth of things. And I understand why my mom didn't have this conversation with me while I was alive, because it would have crushed me, and it would have made me feel so angry towards her for not telling me sooner, which I'm sure, like, when is the right time? So her telling me in spirit makes a lot of sense. I'm glad that she did. And I have a lot of compassion for her. And I actually understand why she chose what she did. My biological father passed away when I was 8 weeks old. So, I never got to meet him. Perhaps he held me as a baby. I like to think that he did. I don't know that, since I don't have those stories from my mom of anything. Um, there's a lot that I don't know. And so anytime that I can communicate with other mediums, and get a session for myself, I can't tell you the amount of joy and healing that I experience when I get to connect to my biological father, who I only know through the spirit world. Um, and once I realized, okay, so I get to the bottom of, the truth of, this isn't my biological father, and moving through all of those emotions and feelings in postpartum. And I'm also struggling with the idea that I can communicate with spirit. And what does this mean? And was I having a mental breakdown? Was I experiencing, I don't know, like a psychosis, or was this real? And that had me concerned. And so I had to just sit with that for a while. I think I sorted through the emotions of, um, raising my little kids, and the truth about my, biological father. And then once the dust had settled, so I don't even remember at this point how long had passed before I started to really sit with myself and sit with my mom and ask her more questions, and, talk to her about the spirit world, and, connect in with my guides, journal, um, Google everything I could about mediums, watch every show, read every book I could get my hands on. Back when I was sort of in that energy, I remember wishing so badly that there was like Cliff Notes or something that I could just, read really quickly and understand mediumship communication, and, know for sure that what I was experiencing was real. However, that really doesn't exist. And mediumship is really a spiritual journey of unfoldment in our own communication with the other side. So it is a slower process. It's a little bit like I'm seeing the visual of like honey. It's something that is happening and unfolding in its time, and we can't really rush it as much as that energy is there with us because it's this exciting thing as well. It's like, wait a minute, I can communicate with spirit. Like, what else can I do? How much deeper can I go into this? Who else can I communicate with? So there's a lot of excitement, and it's almost as if um, it doesn't have anywhere to go. You know, we can sit down and do as much as we can on our own. And it's not until we really get into development circles or in a mentorship or a course where we're practicing and showing ourselves to ourselves. So I really think it's important to do that part, do that piece, do the practice. So you're kind of showing that evidential piece to yourself. And then it's also why I think evidential mediumship is so important. And so if I didn't say that at the beginning, I consider myself first and foremost an evidential medium. So I don't know if you've ever been to a psychic or seen it on TV where you go somewhere or a tarot reader and they're just kind of reading your cards and saying whatever they want to say, or they're connecting in psychically and saying, oh, I see this past life where you're with this person and this and this. And like, okay, any of that can be true. But with evidential mediumship, you are getting specific, high integrity information that only the sitter will know. And by sitter, I mean the person that you're reading for. So when you're doing practice, it's the other person that you're practicing with. So you're bringing through their people. And, you know, if you're a beginner, it's like, oh my gosh, this is real. I am bringing through this person's father. I am getting this evidence that is true for her and that she feels that she knows that I am connected in with her person. And then any healing messages, information, insight from the other side comes in, and it can change people's lives. I know for me, being on the receiving end as a sitter, I have had profound experiences with other mediums, and it really has changed my life in the most positive way. Um, so I also want to speak to that. Um, and so you've heard my story about how I opened up to spirit. Obviously, my mom and I had many conversations after that with in the spirit world, and I love her, and I know she struggled here on earth, and I actually understand why she made the choices that she did. And forgiveness was had and experienced between the two of us. And I just love her so much. And I'm so grateful that she's one of my spirit people to guide me and support me while I'm here on earth. And that she brought this to me, that she's the one who really showed me that I am able and capable of communicating with the spirit world. So sometimes people say they've been a medium their entire life. They've always connected to spirit, and everybody experiences it differently. I've heard really wild stories of people as little children, you know, waking up in their bedroom and experiencing spirit almost like a portal in their room. And I think that that's incredible. And my experience, when I started to really look back at my life, I remember a moment. Specifically where I was walking home from school and I felt like some kids were teasing me or calling me names or something that I had the reaction of feeling extremely sad and alone and isolated. And I grew up as an only child. So I had a lot of time to be with myself and what I called the imagination land or the imaginative world. I always was able to entertain myself, and I always felt like I had animal spirits around me and kindred souls, and I was very visual as a child. So on this particular day, I'm carrying this huge refrigerator box. Like it must have been at our school that we lived right next door to our elementary school. And I think that was kind of what provoked the kids to make fun of me or call it my home or something. And so I have this big refrigerator box and I put it on our porch, my mom and I's porch. And I started decorating the inside and crying and just feeling so alone in that moment, and missing my dad who raised me because he had moved to a different state and I got to see him on holiday break and summer. But I really missed that connection with him. And I was putting up a picture of him and my little pillows in the box, and I had my crayon, I'm decorating it. And I remember experiencing this person visiting me, who I now absolutely know it was my biological father. And he came to me and he had this southern accent and he was saying, "It's okay, darling." And I remember looking at his cowboy boots and saying, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And I was quite scared as a kid and confused because I thought I had a dad and I didn't know who this person was, kind of giving me this fatherly love, fatherly advice, kind of like a hug from the spirit world. So it really scared me. I remember kind of even bunching up in the corner of this box and telling him to go away. So, you know, that's probably the time that stands out when I look back on what I might have experienced as a youngster. I also remember always seeing colors around people, and in particular, dark clouds around people that I knew I just like didn't want to go to their house or didn't want to go play with them. Or as a teenager, too, I felt like it was something that I utilized a lot. Like if somebody had a dark cloud around them, I'd know, like, no way, I'm not going to go to their house or I'm not going to go do anything with them. And I thought everybody else also had that ability. We just like weren't talking about it. So it's something that I think if you're just experiencing life in this way, you just assume everybody else is as well. So I know for me, those things stand out as the things that I was probably accessing my gifts and not really realizing or understanding until much later in life, until I was 30, actually, when my mom came to me. So it took a good many years to digest the fact that I could do this. And then also, um, develop and really, be a student and practice. And then as soon as I felt ready, I was really in this rush of energy to go out and do the work. It was such a calling and it felt like such a mission that I opened my professional practice in 2020 and have been doing it ever since. So that's kind of my story. And I thought it could be just helpful to share because I know part of all of our development journey is kind of hearing others' experience, since it is such a nuanced experience and something that there isn't really cliff notes out there to, hand us directly in our life to apply spirit work to our soul and the way we work to go out and do it. So, um, I hope that I use the right words. I'm trying to think of the best words to put to that spiritual development and that time where we're just kind of nurturing that growth. But it's just such a unique experience and it's so special. And even when I was going through it, I remember having the perspective of like, wow, this is a really, really special time and I'm going to soak it up. Like, this is kind of this like rebirth of the work that I'm going to do the rest of the time I'm here. So, if you've made it this far through the episode, thank you so much for listening. And please send me any questions that you have. And I look forward to seeing you again in one of the next upcoming episodes. So, also, if there's anything that you're interested in talking about, or hearing me talk about, rather, if there's anything you're curious about, definitely shoot me a message. I'd love to be interactive, and I love talking about all things related to mediumship. So head over to my website. There's a link to communicate with me via email there. And Again, thanks so much for being here.